In my world there is music and good vibes and laughter and lovers, adventure and friendship. We know who we are.
Welcome to Be the Wellness Podcast, where we help you master your body, mind, and the experience of life through insightful conversation, interviews with experts and thought leaders, all with a side of marital banter and some good old-fashioned humor.
Yes, we are your hosts, Adam and Vanessa Lambert, and we're committed to helping you live life fully expressed physically, mentally, and experientially. Sit back, grab a cup of coffee, and join the conversation.
Hello and welcome everybody to Be the Wellness Podcast. We are, who are we? We're Adam and Vanessa Lambert, and we're your hosts.
I think so. The last time I checked, that's
Yeah.
who we were. At least in this life.
Totally. Even when it's windy.
We are not Wendy, even when it's windy.
Even when it's windy.
Yes.
Yeah, 100%.
Funny story, though.
What is it?
Daisy's name was actually Wendy when we first adopted her.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
our little
we were
dog
like,
Daisy. She was Wendy.
Yeah, Wendy didn't fit.
She's definitely a Daisy.
Yeah.
She could have been a Windy, but not a Wendy. Because she looks
like
kind
an
of
I as opposed to an E?
Yes, because she looks a little windblown.
Yeah, she's...
But Wendy was just too gentle for her.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, and even though Daisy seems like a relatively gentle name,
Yeah,
it works.
It does work.
Yeah.
So, moving on.
Moving on.
I'm sure that's riveting for all of you out there.
Yeah, for sure. Little dog update.
Yes.
And some weather. Mm-hmm. Pretty standard stuff. So today, we've got a pretty cool podcast.
We do.
The infamous Tait Fletcher and Lacie Mackey.
Yes.
And we'll talk more about them in a minute.
Yes.
However, we're also getting ready to leave for Peru.
We are.
In fact, when this podcast goes up, we will be in the air.
We will actually be in the air when this
En
podcast.
route to Colombia and then Peru.
Yes. To
Hop.
Cusco via Bogota.
Via Bogota. Yeah, that's the way we like to do it.
That is.
We like to cover as many countries in South America as possible in one trip.
Exactly.
Because at the end of the day, we like South America.
We do. We really love it. It's amazing.
It's part of our jam.
And actually, Bogota is really cool. So touching down there is just fine with me.
Yeah, it all works out. So this is, of course, our trek on the Salcantay Trail to Machu Picchu. Mm-hmm. And this has become a favorite, I think, of ours and also of the people who go.
Yes.
It's like what is arguably a life-changing event for everybody that participates. Mm-hmm. And so we're really looking forward to it. It's it's a fun one, you know?
Yeah, and beyond fun, I mean, Peru's just transformative, and,
Right.
we love that word, and we throw it around a lot, but it's, until there's a better word, we're just going to roll with it.
Yeah, or until it gets co-opted by some airy-fairy group of crystal swingers.
It's already happened.
I know.
In fact, we are those airy-fairy crystal swingers. Last time I checked, or at least I am.
It was so cool before when Transformers was like Transformers.
Right.
You know what I mean? They were battle bots. Not anymore.
We're going off track now.
Is there such a thing?
But we are really excited. That was a rhetorical question, right?
Yes.
We are really excited to go back to Peru. And this retreat has become a wonderful experience for us. It has been really a proclamation of sorts to what is possible, which really fits with today's theme and today's podcast, because we'll be talking about that a lot. And Peru has been an example of the very thing that we're talking about in this podcast, which is that sometimes you decide to do something hard.
Right.
But at the end of it, on the other side of that hard, is the most beautiful experience of your life. And when we say hard, what we mean is that this trek, this, 7 days on the Salcantay Trail, going up and over 15,000 feet.
Yeah, 15,200.
15,200.
Once you're that high, you don't even want to mess around. You want to count those extra couple of hundred feet.
Instead of like CrossFit, every second counts, every meter counts.
Yeah, well, certainly. Yeah.
Yeah. So, this trek is one of those things that is challenging to body, mind, spirit, all of the above, but one of the most incredible experiences that you can have because it does invite you to participate in this dance of doing something hard and experiencing what's on the other side of it, and and proactively putting yourself in the path of that instead of, trying to avoid what's difficult and trying to keep everything easy and painless.
Right.
This is about putting yourself in the path of discovery of what's in the discomfort. And, obviously the whole trek is not uncomfortable. I mean, for God's sakes, we hike from luxury lodge to luxury lodge.
This is a Be the Wellness event at the end of the day.
At the end of the day, there is a private chef. Don't get me wrong. So, and maybe that is the thing on the other side of the pain.
Right.
But, there is something really magical and powerful about putting yourself in the line of choosing to do something challenging and to see and to test that limit and to see what's possible for you in that space and what there is to be learned. And that is really what is so amazing about this trip. And I think why it's so transformational for people is that it lives in a zone of difficulty where it takes something to examine what's there to be learned, how to lean into it, and how to be with the experience of the discomfort when it gets hard, and really just understanding who you are fundamentally as a person when things get tough. And it really can teach you to build up that inner strength and that inner dialogue in a new way. And it's profound.
It is. Yeah. Yeah. All with a nice side dish of luxury.
Yes,
Which
exactly.
is cool. And I think that's one of the things about it. It's the juxtaposition of like being out and exposed in the elements, trudging along, in some cases trudging, in other cases, hopping and skipping gleefully.
Yes.
Because there's some of that.
There's definitely some of that.
But you're just surrounded by, nature and everything that it has to offer, or at least certainly everything that the Andes has to offer, which is, a lot.
Yes.
And then you get to land in like a super hospitable, warm, comfortable environment with amazing food and cool people.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think that, for us, that's what's so important for our experiences is that we do want to challenge people to step into something different and to have a new experience. But at the end of the day, like remembering that it's not all just about suffering.
Right.
Like it is about the beautiful parts of our life and the things that we can create that can be very abundant and luxurious and amazing feeling too. So I think that's probably what makes this trip one of the most special and one of the most, one that we, sell out easily and that people are really attracted to, because I think inherently we know that there's a lot for us in the human experience to experience that juxtaposition of something hard and then something wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the contrast, right?
It is the contrast.
The contrast is what makes things so sweet.
Yes.
Yeah.
So with that said, we are in fact looking at doing another Peru trip next year, and we may or may not have a few options when it comes to our Peru trek next year. So folks out there who are wanting to go to Peru, or, maybe couldn't get in this time because it was sold out, or this is a bucket list item for you, make sure that you're tracking with us. Go to our website, join the newsletter, or go to the website and join. I believe we're going to have a sign-up list.
There is, yes.
What's the word I'm looking for?
You're looking for the word pre-sale list.
Pre-sale? Okay.
Yep. But
Sure.
what it is right now is a wait list.
That's what I was looking for. A wait list.
Yeah.
Yeah. So get your name on these things, join the newsletter, get on the pre-sale or the wait list, because when we push this stuff out, it tends to go really quickly. So we want you to have the option to get it at the best rate at the best time and all that good stuff. So make sure you're tracking with us for that, because that's coming soon.
Yeah, totally. And the best way to do that is just BeTheWellness.com, click on the experiences tab, and then find Machu Picchu or Peru and just do it.
Join the list.
Get yourself on the list.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So really excited about that, and really excited to be going back, and super excited to finally connect with Tait and Lacie, because they are fellow Venetians, and we've been dancing around trying to find a time that works for everybody to connect. And today was the magical day where it all came together.
Yeah, this was the spot. This was the place and the time.
It was.
And it all worked out. So Tait Fletcher is he is an interesting dude that has done a lot of different stuff. So he's a former MMA fighter, and he's been in that world in and around the UFC and the various MMA stuff for quite a while. And he's also co-founder of Caveman Coffee, and he is also a actor and stuntman.
Yes.
Which it's just like, because I've known him from the MMA world, right? For years, just seeing him in and around. And I think the first movie that I saw him in was actually in Westworld.
Yeah.
And I was like,
hey, that's Tait Fletcher.
that's Tait Fletcher. I mean, and I didn't even know him. Today was the first day that I'd met him, but it's just like in that circle, I'm like, oh my God, there it is. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And so he's all over the map in that stuff, right?
Yes.
And then Lacie Mackey, his partner in crime, is a professional trainer and co-owner of Caveman Coffee. And she brings a lot to the table, as you guys will hear.
Yes.
Very insightful and interesting person to hear talk about all of the vast breadth of things that we got into today.
That we go over. Yeah, they really brought the sort of the feminine and the masculine side of both of all the topics that we covered, and it was great having them. And one of the things they talk about is pirate life. Tait has a podcast called Pirate Life, and this is sort of a ethos, if you will, that they adhere to, and it's really about taking personal responsibility. And kind of getting back to what we were talking about in Peru, we really talk about, not accepting the average life. They talk about not living the average helpless life, where with average health and a slow decline into accepted sickness. It's about turning into these things that are hard, that maybe we don't have the natural skill set for, or maybe we, didn't come up in a household where we were taught these things, but we lean into these difficult places so that we can actually create more possibility in our life and, live a healthier, happier, more vibrant experience. And so, I think it's really cool because, especially in this PC day and age where nobody wants to say anything that hurts anyone's feelings, we really dive into how that can be a handicap. And how in some ways, a little bit of tough love, or even just a little bit of real love by saying what's real and what's true for people is, somehow being stamped out in this PC culture. And it's really refreshing to hear people, taking a stand for it. Like, no, we need to make sure that we are actually addressing what's really here for the betterment of that person, as well as the scope of humanity.
Right. Yeah, 100%. And it's about, I don't think anybody's advocating bullying or shit talking.
Right.
But it's about being real and being able to say what is real in a compassionate and loving way to the people that matter to you,
Yeah. And just not accepting the status quo of what's being handed to us, what's being marketed to us as the accepted way to start now being and living and eating and breathing and talking and acculturating ourselves. Like, it's actually about pulling back the blinders and saying, no, what's real here and what is important about this, and how can we make an impact in our own way, but also be real about the things that are going on in the world.
Yeah.
So it's pretty cool. I really appreciated just the candid nature of this conversation. And I think it's important that we're having these conversations, even if the topics sometimes stray into gray areas or difficult areas that people are trying to avoid or trying to, not have a stance on. Right.
Well, I think especially in that case, right? Yeah. It's too easy to just kind of gloss over the things that are uncomfortable. You know, and it's super important to just make sure that they bubble up, Right.
Absolutely. So if you want to get uncomfortable, listen to the podcast and then come to Peru with us.
Yeah, exactly. There's 2 doses of discomfort.
We're giving you a little cocktail of discomfort today. But no, really, we really enjoyed this podcast. And without further ado, here's Lacie and Tait.
And we're live. Welcome to the podcast, guys.
Thanks, man. Good to be here.
Hello. Yeah. It's awesome to have you guys here. It's like a nice little perfect picture of you two at the end of the table here.
I love it. This is so beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah. So we just drew animal cards.
Yep.
And Tait, you got animal deities?
Animal deities, yes.
So what does it say, and do you think it represents? Do you think it's legit for where you're at in your life?
It says animal spirits revolve around a boy playing the flute, the shepherd's pipe, and he's making the animals dance in the name of Krishna.
Ooh.
I have no idea about my relation to this card at all.
Seems legit, though.
So that's not like something you're like, oh yeah, I do that in my spare time all the time, actually.
I need to be more self-aware to understand.
There you go. How about you, Lacie? You got the wolf?
Yeah, I got the wolf, and so I'd love to believe that these are all descriptions of me, but I would venture to say that they are at different times. So creation, healing, purification. Like the raven, which also appears in this painting, the wolf is a hero and a creator. In some legends, she is the trickster sibling to the coyote, who we'll hear about in a minute. Healing power of the wolf, and perform wolf dance in the skin of an animal to cure the sick. So yeah, I would definitely say that creation falls in what I'm working on now.
Really?
Always.
And I feel like just looking at the back of the card, like the hair is almost like, I don't know, the way it's framing your face right now and the way it is on the card. I'm like, I'm feeling this kinship.
Definitely identify with the wolf, and like I have a little power wall behind my desk, and there's a lot of wolves in that symbol.
Really?
So yeah.
Oh, nice. Awesome.
That's cool.
Adam over there is the coyote.
Yeah, I got the coyote, which is it's different for me. So this is transformation, creation, cunning, and good fortune, which, does kind of sound like what I usually get with this kind of stuff, but it's what goes on here. So the coyote often embodies the trickster, a mischievous but heroic supernatural being that uses magic, cunning, or deception to achieve its ends.
Ooh.
So we'll see where this goes. Stay tuned.
Embody those roles, and then
And I was the dove, which is interesting because normally I'm something like more squawky, like a parrot. So I'm like, ooh, a dove is so soft and
Soothing.
Yeah. I'm like, okay, maybe I'm bringing the feminine energy today, I guess.
Yeah.
But it says sexuality, peace, and divine inspiration. I can roll with that.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Why not?
So I really want to start out at this particular Instagram post that you posted a few months ago. Actually, I don't know how long it was ago, but it really stuck out to me. And I think this is a great place to start because it was an Instagram post of a lady who was overweight, an obese person, and you were talking about like
It was on the cover of Cosmo, right?
on the cover of Cosmo. And you were talking about them normalizing this, and how we've become as a society trying to normalize these things that really ultimately is not healthy and really is ultimately not embodying our highest expression of our potential. And I really want to start there because I think, first of all, it's really brave that you speak out about it, because I think we're in this place right now in society where we're so afraid to say anything that might not be kosher or might not be, what the current dogma is trending towards. And so I really want to start with, what is it about that resonated with you that made you want to say something? And what do you think in general about this time in society with people just sort of normalizing all of these things that maybe aren't the healthiest things to have normalized? Going deep, going straight in.
I think it's like commerce, I guess, I mean, everybody wants to know that love rules the day, and that's not true. It's greed. And it beats it every time. And even people that would say, no, I'm not that way. It's like at certain price points, it's like people are bought everywhere. And a lot of ways I'm bought is through my apathy and through my inability to accept my own responsibility for my life. And that apathy, if I just let things happen, well, I'm just a human being. I'm just going to be doing, and I'm going to sit. And with that comes certain results. And it's like, if there's cause and effect in the world, then I get to be a creator of my world. And that being true, that I get to have an impact on that. And if I just sit back, I can, I don't know, you don't have to sit with too many people that die to see the end game of what ill health does, what addictions do, whether that's food or whatever. But to speak to that picture in particular, it's like this normalization of like, I'm terrifically obese and on the verge of all types of maladies. I mean, it's like all kinds of ill health stems from that in a dangerous, in a real way, and not a funny way, poking fun at or anything like that. But like, this is an illness, and to normalize it and say, just be nice to people. Don't bully people. And to conflate the idea of bullying or of like that I have some other agenda that as if it's to be mean. It's like to speak about somebody's health and to be honest about that and go, God, is she pregnant or is she just overweight? It's like, fuck, man. If somebody can't tell if you're overweight or pregnant, man, that's a problem, man. And it's like, and it takes somebody that is, I think, kind enough or loves you enough to be able to say that. And people don't think about kindness as being harsh. And it's like maybe the best kinds of kindness are a little harsh, because God help me if I live in a world where nobody tells me the truth about what I am, because everybody wants to be polite, because I don't get to be objective about my whole self. Nobody does. And to have a disconnection of my own idea of myself, like to know myself so little that I don't even know that I don't know what I don't know about me, is like I get, you're lost in that. And I think that it speaks to, that kind of portion of self where it's like I'd rather not, and my stance would be I would rather you do. I would rather you try. And like this one look, it looks like, no, just accept everything, and my stretch marks are battle scars. Well, I got stretch marks too, and it's like, and they speak to something, but it's not like I don't want to ever get into a point where I'm like, I used to shoot heroin, and I think that I don't want to maybe put that out as if like that's a success, right? I don't think we need to see so many people that are ripped apart and their lives torn asunder to say like, oh yeah, it's just, hey, do what you love, man. Do what you love. I've loved things that were not very great for me at certain times. And so I think to not be brave enough to speak about it, it's like I would feel ashamed about that, I guess.
Got it.
And I think that's why it's important, because it comes down to like either you're pushing the idea of people being responsible for oneself or not.
Yeah.
And if you're pushing the agenda that you shouldn't be responsible for yourself, and you shouldn't kind of try to tighten up your own game on whether that is tidying your car or your lifestyle, your diet or whatever, is insane. It's fucking insane. And it hurts people, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, I know we see it.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So it's one of those things that, and man, I think obesity is a really easy way to talk about this, because it's just kind of everywhere, and there's a lot of data, to sort of support everything that we're saying, but it probably goes across the spectrum, right? With all sorts of maladies, to use your word around that. But I think that there's this piece of that now where we just get stuck in it, kind of like what Vanessa was saying, where there's, whether you want to call it political correctness, or whether you want to call it, well, we can't be bullying people or fat shaming or doing this or that. But it's like it's stripped away our ability to talk about it objectively. In like what you were saying, it's like, no, this isn't, I'm not being mean to you. You've got a real problem here. And like what we're seeing with type 2 diabetes and all of the rise of this stuff, that's what's going to crack our healthcare system. You know what I mean? It's like something that should actually be talked about more, and it's a tricky one.
I think it's mixed up in commerce too, because it's not lucrative self-responsibility. What's lucrative is to have the police come take care of you, have somebody else, a governing body over your life, so that you can, just kind of push off your responsibilities to somebody else, and then somebody will do that. They'll charge you tax dollars for that, or whatever. It's like there's no finance in self-responsibility and in a healthy country, which is a weird thing. And so that's kind of like the way our coffee companies kind of started, was this idea about pirate life, about pirate your life back, about, we've been compromised in a lot of ways, and all visually. I mean, like you think about guys like Banksy started a whole revolution of art because he was talked about visual pollution. And it's like you're sold every day on more, on this, on that. Here's some more things you don't need. Our TV is filled with, it's the only country, we're the only country that sells prescriptions, or that sells advertisements for drug commercials, and for things that you didn't think were problems, right? That you're going to need other pills to take care. It's like we're in an insanity. And so the idea about like, don't be aware and don't be self-responsible is like it's the ultimate in playing oneself, right?
Yeah.
What do you think, Lacie, as a woman weighing in on this? What's your viewpoint?
Yeah, I think that we've done this like crazy pendulum swing where it used to be like, I grew up with like Kate Moss, like, let's be as skinny and like and like smoke cigarettes and be and like almost, I don't know if you've ever watched like Eliza Schlesinger
Yes.
comedy, but it's like if you could see my backbone and I want like a big like
You're
thing
worried for me?
Yeah, exactly. I want to look
Exactly.
like Skeletor and be like super unhealthy that way.
You're right.
And now we've like rebounded into this other way when we realized that wasn't like possible, whatever. We're selling this thing in fashion that's not realistic, but instead of just being like, let's be healthy, let's be strong, the message is like, you can just be whatever your body type is. And it's not about body type. It's about like, yeah, we're all going to have different shapes and sizes and like beautiful things about us. And we should embrace that for sure. And fashion hopefully follows that. And it has, but embracing being sick and unhealthy and saying that I don't have a choice to be obese is bullshit. And it's like, there is a world of knowledge out there. There are a million different things you could do. It doesn't have to be a fad diet or this or that. It's like, you can just choose to live healthy. And there's so many arguments that people have about like, well, the cost of it and the knowledge of it and all this stuff. And I would argue, and I have this, discussion with a lot of people. It's like, I would argue that if you looked at your finances and you looked at your bar bill from the week, you probably spend more money in one Friday night than you do at the grocery store.
Right.
And you can literally heal yourself with food. And if you don't know that, or you're not working towards that, like, guess what? You don't have to go to the doctor very often. You don't have to take pills. Like, there's so many things around that. And it gets into the like mental health issues as well, where we've been feeding ourselves for the past, really the last, 60 years that fast food has really become, or chemical food has become the norm. When we look at like mental health problems and the things that have increased, it correlates with those numbers.
Right.
So it's like, we're talking about holistic health and all the different facets that you could actually look at it, all being related to our diet and food. And so instead of, like going back to the pirate life thing, instead of going, well, I don't feel good, I'm tired all the time, I'm sluggish, I'm overweight, I'm just going to go to my doctor and get a pill, I'm going to do whatever is told to me by corporate America, for, lack of a better term. But instead of really researching it myself and trying different things and like reading a book and saying, okay, I'm going to try eating like this for a while, I'm going to try doing like this, I'm going to try this type of sleep pattern, whatever that is, to find it, because there's nobody that's tried those things that hasn't found success and then gone further into those things. So you have to be responsible for yourself. And I think that we've somehow gotten ourselves into this thing where we're not responsible for ourselves, and where the doctors are responsible for us and the government is responsible for us and the people that are making the food are responsible for us. But really the responsibility is each person. And if you want to live in a like completely victim mindset, you're going to have a really sad existence. And if you want to empower yourself and do the challenging, hard thing, eventually you're going to feel great. And like, that's, kind of the message that we have been trying to get out there.
Yeah.
And,
I love it.
using coffee to do it, but it's just like that.
Hey.
That's the reality. And it's not easy for sure, but it's also not easy to be miserable all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting because it feels like we have like much of what's going on in our community, in our nation, is that there's this polarity of people who are taking more responsibility for themselves than ever. Like, they're just going at it with food, with their mindset, with everything. Like, they're really attacking their personal responsibility story. And then on the other side, there's this where the pendulum, as you said, has swung, where these people are just more and more relinquishing more of their power, more of their thoughts, more of their processes to whatever's fed to them, essentially. And it's really interesting to see that dichotomy exist right now and how far people have gone. And it really is about, getting people to really understand that like they have access to this information. We all have a personal responsibility, but we all have access, like more access than ever, right? We've no longer is it that you can't actually go online and research anything, that you can have 40 websites at your fingertips where you can understand something deeper than in the past, than we've ever had access to. So were you both interested in your health and well-being, or how did this process come to be where you sort of started to say, let's make a difference, let's start talking about this, let's create a coffee brand and, just give a go at it? What brought you guys to this point?
Well, it's kind of what brought us together. I mean, Tate's always been an athlete. I was like an athlete in high school and college, and then met him, actually interviewing him on the radio when I was working for the Chamber of Commerce, and we were talking about business and had been searching for like health in my adult life. Like I knew team sports and like I played a lot of like high level junior Olympics, stuff like that in high school. And then I had nothing after that and was like kind of floundering around, like, what am I going to do? Don't feel healthy. And I met Tait, and he was just kind of this like beacon of like, here's all these things. And like, I'm trying, he's just constantly like trying new things and like pushing himself to be better. And that really was exciting for me and kind of, I think, attracted us to each other in that way. And then we're always trying similar things. So we were trying paleo, and we did a paleo challenge, and then we tried something called the Whole Life Challenge, which kind of took it a little step further. And we sat in this CrossFit gym, CrossFit LA at the time, and Mark Sissons, who had just put out his first book, and he had Mark's Daily Apple, but he was doing like little tours at different gyms, and so there were like probably 50 of us in a room sitting on the floor listening to him speak. I call him the Silver Fox. I was like, who is this like amazing ripped like dude?
Yeah.
And he talked to us about nutrition, and it really rang true, all the things that he was saying and like the lifestyle that he was talking about. So that started a conversation with us. And then coffee became like a center portion of that during that time. And then our other partner, Keith, who was also training a ton and like looking for the next step in his future and another level of health. And we all just bonded over that. And originally we set out to have like a lifestyle blog and this whole thing. And then coffee happened, and it just became this like focal point of a center of discussion that we could actually talk to people about coffee, but then have a broader conversation about your health and your choices that you're making.
Yeah, it's a great lever, honestly. You know what I mean? Because it's like people, if you say, "Hey, let's talk diet," people are like, "Nah, I'm out." But if you come in with coffee, they're like,
Well, it's also
interesting,
like
Tell
cultural
me more.
universal. Everyone uses it to
Yeah.
like have a ritual and communicate with each other. So it's a great starting point.
Yeah, awesome. And how about you, Tait? Like, obviously, you were an athlete. Have you always just had this passion to spread the word, though, or did that come later in life?
I guess I always felt like what I really noticed in life was that there's a lot of bullshit,
Yeah.
right? And so as a young person, you go and you look at like, if you're a young man, maybe you look at Flex Magazine or Muscle Media 2000 or something like that, right? And there's these magazines out there, and then these magazines are paid for by advertisements. And these guys like Ronnie Coleman, I think, was a cop. And you're like, he doesn't use drugs because he's a police officer. Right? But he's very large, very muscular. And I think he won Mr. Olympia or something like that. And he's muscular enough to do that drug-free, I assume, because I'm a kid reading this magazine about the protein and the creatine. He just gets plenty of sleep at night.
Right.
And, and that's made the difference, right? And so you look at all the bullshit, and then I looked at like in food, it's the same. We're into the same kind of attack. And then as I got older, it's like it became under government attack. Not only, there's corporations just lying to you, but then it's like, wow, then you got companies that can harness leverage so much like Monsanto that they can get a guy into being the head of the FDA. Well, fuck, that seems not right. And so then that gives me pause to think about like all these people that everybody says, since I'm a little kid, are on your side to help you, are all here, and they're complicit in your slavery. They're complicit in you being enslaved by either pharmaceutical pills or by diet in different ways. And I just never had a idea about how to crack the code. I didn't know how to open up a bag of chips and not see the bottom of the bag.
Yeah.
I had no idea. Like once I open up the Pringles, we're getting to the bottom of that can. Like that's what's happening. And so like with that, I had no idea that like until like guys like Rob Wolf started talking about it and Mark Sisson, they both started speaking about, that carbohydrates are going to crave more sugar. They're going to crave more. And so if you begin eating that day, you can predict how your day will go, and it will be nigh on impossible, which was what I'd found. Once I began eating in a certain fashion, I cannot not eating that way until I reset myself the next day. And I started noticing that, and I felt this powerlessness about like, how can I stop my hand from going to my mouth? And I've got these fucking love handles that I want to cut off with scissors, and is liposuction that expensive? And all like, you know, all the fucking madness that blows into your mind. And you know, you start looking at that. I mean, I've never seen a more body dysmorphic group of people than a group of wrestlers that are looking towards fights, and everybody's ripped. You're going, man, I'm so fat right now. Like, it's hilarious. It's hilarious to look at, and terrifically sad once you really personalize it. You're like, yeah, that's pathetic. That's crazy. And so you look at this insanity that you do for a while, and then, so granted, I come out of a background that's pretty austere, and it has real rigid guidelines, right? For, I mean, whether it's weight and behavior, everything, all of that. And so I go, okay, maybe you don't hate everybody that's in the drive-thru at McDonald's, but like these other people that are walking the earth are different than you. They've got different sense of commitment and responsibility, which is less. Like their lives hasn't. My life needed that. It necessitated a certain behavior, and so then I start looking at that. But then I go, man, but everybody can be free. Everybody can be free of that feeling I had when a kid, when all I heard was bullshit, and you can get free, and you can actually eat yourself. Because I come from a highly depressive background too. Like, since I'm little, I want to kill myself. Since I'm maybe 9, I'm seeing a shrink, you know, and I just thought, man, this way of eating, I can put myself in a more advantageous position emotionally if I eat correctly, and then that speaks to, you know, my body also, that then also encourages my feelings, which then also helps embolden my actions. And so when I can get those cycles in the correct flow, I can feel a lot better about showing up to my life. And I'm in an emotional and physical position to be the most useful and of service, which is at the point where I think human beings, me in particular, feel the best if you're able to be useful and purposeful, right? And so just getting the idea of how to fit my body to that end, I had no idea how to do it. And it's guys like Rob and like Mark and like, you know, CrossFit, things like that. Like, it just heightened the level of everything for me in my thinking about it. And then, you know, I started thinking about other people could do that because, you know, maybe they didn't know. And I only had my commitment and my discipline. Like, I was committed to his own diet for a while, to a paleo diet, to the Atkins diet. Like, I've done everything, and I just know that if I don't do it 100% for 2 months, that I'm not going to have any result from it that I can talk about because I won't have experience, right? And so, which is a real problem on the internet these days. I understand that there's people that maybe don't have experience that have a lot of things that they are emphatically saying.
There's a lot of
I've
that.
heard that.
But that, so like, I just wanted the experience, you know, and so and as I go, you know, it changes as I go, but it's like, there's you know, how do you set yourself free? That's really what we've been about. Like, and it's only because of my life. It's like that's why it interests me. Is like, how do I get free of wanting to put a pistol in my mouth? How do I get free of not being able to have the body that I want, or the lifestyle that I want, or how do I whatever it is, and so like, that's been a lot of the expression of my life, and some of that looks like a company that built up around it. You know, I mean, that's like a lot of what my podcast is about. But I don't think it's a seeking a truth that I don't think that I'll be done with until I'm dead, and I don't think it'll be complete at that time. It'll just be in another realm. And so that's what I'm up to, and it seems weird, I guess, to think about, like, you know, it's not thinking that's for everybody, maybe. You know, like, I come from a background that's got high consequences to poor behavior. And so, and there's an instant, I mean, if you're fucking poor, you got high consequences to bad behavior. You make a wrong fucking turn and it costs you money. That's serious, man. And if you're not aware of how serious those things are, then you're in a really disadvantageous position with which to win in life, which you can do. It's available. And so I think that's it. How do I comport myself to put myself in a position where I can win, you know? And you don't have to be the best, the strongest, fast. The greatest hockey player ever to live was Wayne Gretzky, I think. And they called him the Great One. He was so great. And I remember him getting interviewed when I was a little kid, and they go, well, what makes you the Great One? And he goes, well, I'm not the fastest, man. And I'm little. I'm not big. I don't have a good shot. And then he goes, well, you've got the most score, you got the most assists, the most goal. Like, how do you explain that? He goes, I look in the future and I put myself in a position to score. I position myself well. And I start looking at that in life. And so my background in jiu-jitsu, I go, that's the same thing we do. I just offer you a bunch of bad solutions, then I'm going to strangle you when you pick wrong. You know what I mean? Like, that's what's happening. And so I'm like, that's in the macrocosm of life. That's the same thing, man. And so I thought about this positioning aspect and like, how can I position myself to score? Like, meaning, how can I position myself with my food to eat correctly that's going to nourish me? How can I position myself, like, with my thinking that's going to put me towards a better goal with a project that I have going? Like, it's like all those things I start to look at. And so when I say it's not for everybody, what I mean is that it's like, for me, like, if I drink, my life becomes a drink. It becomes that big. It's like that. So I don't drink for a long time, you know, and there's a high consequence to me drinking. And so I have to prepare myself to be in life in a certain way that can offer me a life where I don't have to drink, because it's fucking can be awful to not drink. You know, if you need to drink in life, it can be a motherfucker. I get it. Life's hard, man, whatever. Yeah. But once that stops working, which it stopped working for me, it's like, now what do I do? Well, fuck, if that's the consequence, I need to be highly disciplined. Not everybody needs to be that disciplined. But shame, for me, it worked. Like this thing about fat shaming, this, that. It's like, man, a healthy dose of being really highly ashamed of myself for years and years and years and years and years. And yeah, maybe, and some people die. Some people kill themselves. But fucking, and I mean, who knows? My story is not over yet. Like, but the thing is that you can get around that and you can beat that. Like, that doesn't need to be the thing. And if you're of those people that need to live a high consequence life, you must have an answer to those problems. If you don't have a map to navigate those roads, then it is suicide. Suicide is unavoidable. I think, you know.
So do you think that you know, that sort of following this high consequence lifestyle, or if, because what I'm hearing is that you recognize that for you, having high consequences was a solid motivator, and that could kind of keep you moving along. Sure. Is that what sort of steered you into combat sports, or like how did jits and MMA and all that stuff fill it in? I
think I learned. I saw that I needed to have the biggest. I wanted to get the most juice for the squeeze. And so what I saw early on is that if I increased the level of the consequence, that I could perform better. And I didn't know why that was, but I just saw that. And so I always looked to increase the consequences of whatever I did. Sometimes not to the best effects, but but that was something that I saw was like, you know, and I didn't know anything about flow states or ecstasis or anything like that at that time. I since read a book, The Rise of Superman, a bunch of years ago, and it gave a glossary of terms kind of to what I was experiencing, but like kind of a heightened sensitivity or a draw towards that idea of a flow state was a thing I got a taste for early when I was a little kid. And I just ran towards it, and I didn't know what that was. And I found out what that was later. It was like, you know, you're looking for the most beautiful cocktail of neurochemicals that you can get off on that you never felt like. It feels like you've transcended life, you know. And so that's what I was after. And so in that, I go, okay, if you want to operate at a higher consciousness, you always have to, you know, I mean, you can always play life at easy, you know, or you can play it at that expert level. Right. You're going to get certain results if you play it at the easy level. And I just knew I'm not good. I'm not talented. But I knew if I played at a higher risk level that I would get a better result and that I could get better quicker. And that's what I was after. That was what I was about. So I always wanted to wrestle against the best guys, fight the best guys, train with the best guys, because I knew that if I could make myself, you know, at least a participant in those levels, that I would be far superior to everybody else in that way, you know, and that I'd be far superior to what I would be if I maintained dominance at a lower level or something like that, I guess, as it were. You know, I've never been interested in being like, oh, I want to be a big fish in a small pond. I'm like, no, man, I want try to drown me. I'm going to go in here and try to drown me. Let's see what happens, you know?
Yeah, that's an important one, I think. You know, that big fish, small pond thing can creep in at like every level, you know, once you become like the cool guy in your group.
Yeah. It's hard. It's hard to suck, you know, and then once you're the best for a long time, it's hard to think about somebody maybe who's going to beat you. You know what I mean? It's like all that. And it's so then it's like, how do you, whenever I feel any of that, I go, okay, that's the tension in life. You need to go into it. What would happen? Let's see what would happen then. Right. Maybe feel what losing would feel like. Like, you know, it's like all that shit. Like, what scares you? Feel that. Walk through that. See if it's true.
Yeah.
Because most of the shit I'm scared about is not even true. You know?
So true. So for you, obviously, you have a physical component of this path. What about you, Lacie? Is there something that has helped you discover these pieces of you that, you know, maybe help you get through the fear?
Yeah. I don't know that I think I came from a different mindset on things. Like I always just wanted to get approval, seek approval. I think that's like where a lot of my driving forces come from. And so if that's like be the best at everything. So I always have this like super competitive, like if I'm going to do this, I'm going to like go all the way. Or if I'm going to try this, I want to push it further and I want to really excel at it and I want to figure it out and I want to learn all the different parts to it. And so that's definitely like my driving force in getting into most of this stuff. And then I think it's interesting how the dialogue changes. Like I remember being like kind of, I'm an adult now. I don't have team sports. I don't have a challenge. I'm doing career things, but I don't know about this other like self-improvement part. And so I was always trying, but kind of striking out. Like I hated running, but I was doing like half marathons. And then I was like doing yoga, like really was a spiritual thing for me and like reconnecting with myself, my early 20s. And then when I met Tait and found CrossFit, then I was like, oh, it's on. I can like compete in something. And then that turned into a whole slew of things in like getting more into the fitness world. And I just became that person going over the microphone, getting into the fitness world and really making that a lifestyle and a career as opposed to just like fitness is a thing that you do 1 hour a day. And then you have your career and then you have all these little segments. And when I moved to Los Angeles, it was like, oh, you could do anything. I don't even know what jobs people have here. It's just like everyone's like at a coffee shop in the middle of the day, like whatever. But you could kind of create something. And I think it's an exciting time for us to be alive as well, realizing that the old world way of like go to school, get a job, continue in that job, which was kind of ingrained in me growing up, isn't necessarily the only way. It is a way. You can do that for sure.
Yeah.
Sometimes I wonder if that, you know, is that a more clear path? But you get to, if you want to be creative and you want to do other things and you want to really embody your lifestyle, then the opportunity is there. And I've made a bunch of, you know, kind of big jumps that I think started with that first CrossFit experience and then moved into creating all these other things and being a part of that lifestyle.
Do you still CrossFit?
I very remedially. I tore my labrum in my shoulder not doing CrossFit. I CrossFitted since 2010. Destroyed myself, whatever, excited, thousands of, you know, pull-ups and muscle up attempts and things like that. And then I was at a hip hop roller skating birthday party and I fell on a weird, like caught myself in a weird way, thought I tweaked my shoulder. And then I don't know if I fully tore it, but a couple months later, finally got an MRI and at that point had fully torn it. And so literally for 8 months of no jarring movements, couldn't run, couldn't jump, couldn't like everything you think you could do. But now I'm finally getting better.
Nice.
I didn't do surgery. Had lots and lots of collagen.
Amazing. Yeah.
That seems to have helped a lot. And now I can get my hand over my head and I'm starting to get back into things. I do double unders again. So that's
awesome.
Exciting.
Nice.
But not at a competitive level.
Yeah,
I competed in like through 2013.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, that's one of the things I think, you know, I mean, CrossFit obviously has its flaws that I think people are really quick to point out. But I'll tell you, like for us especially, I mean, because we were both competitive athletes in high school. And then after high school, it was like, what do you do?
Nothing.
What do we get to do?
Yeah.
You know, and CrossFit really filled that niche for us, you know, and it was like, I mean, granted, like we competed when there were humans still competing.
Yeah,
you know
me
what
too.
I mean?
95 pounds was like the woman's overhead weight,
right.
and I was working really hard to get there. Now it's like 400 pounds.
Yeah, no, it is just incredible what is going on now. So we were on the NorCal team, like Rob's team in 2009, right? So the last year that the games were in Aromas.
Nice.
You know, and it was like literally the last year that there were just humans there. Like most people, you're like, yeah, I mean, that's reasonable. Like, I couldn't do that, but like, I can see how you can do it, you know? And then it was like literally the first year that it came to LA, just the whole sport had changed, man. And it was like, if you're not between 5'9" and 5'9.5" and 180 pounds, you know, man or
And you
woman.
did gymnastics growing
Yeah,
up.
exactly. Or you were like a world-class gymnast,
Yeah.
like somewhere in there, like, good luck, you know.
Yeah.
It's a trip. Cool sport, though.
Yeah.
I still I
Yeah,
dig
it's
it.
like Kalipa was like a walk-on
Yeah.
back then, right? Like he's like, I CrossFitted twice, and then he came to the thing, and
Just
not even a
crushed
camera
it.
on him when he won.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like nobody,
They
everybody
were
was
like, "What?"
confused when somebody crawled.
Oh,
that
yeah,
was
totally.
crazy.
We were
Yeah.
standing there right in front of, I'm going to forget his name. He was the strength coach at UC Riverside forever and was like OG CrossFit dude.
I know, and he had plantar
Something.
fasciitis or
Yeah.
something at one point.
Yeah, something going on. I'll think of his name. But
He was supposed to win, right?
We were watching him. I mean, it was like came down to the last heat of the last thing, and they were clusters. So it was the
Him
first
and the
time.
dude from Canada, that OPT. I think they were neck and neck. maybe.
Probably, yeah. I mean, yeah, because that dude was a phenomenal athlete too. So everybody's standing there watching him, and we're like counting the reps down, and then somebody starts screaming and yelling from over in the corner, and Kalipa just beat him by like 2 minutes, you know. And everybody's like, "Wait, what do you mean he's done? Like, no, this is impossible, you know." And then everybody just like
It's
shifts
a great
focus.
scene.
It
Yeah.
is.
I think it's in Every Second Counts. I think is the
Oh, probably.
DVD of
Yeah.
it. If,
Yeah,
if
I
you're
got-
listening and want to see it, it's
Yeah.
amazing.
That was the first year of Annie Thor's daughters too.
Yes.
So it was like the beginning of the daughters.
The daughters.
Yeah.
All the daughters,
Beginning
yeah.
of the daughters,
And I remember watching her try to get her first muscle up, which is also I think in the
Yeah.
Every Second Counts movie. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was like she came on the set and it was like, oh shit, this
Yeah.
is changing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
sport.
there's a million things about it, but CrossFit has done a lot for giving adults fitness, I feel
I
like,
agree.
and bringing that community side and the camaraderie back, especially if you did sports.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
There's no other way really to do that unless you're like joining the military or something,
Right.
you know, and it's
Yeah.
just like, it's phenomenal.
Yeah.
Suffering
Yeah.
together
Yeah.
brings you closer.
Yeah.
It really
Totally.
does.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it exposes you to movements that you maybe never did before. The first time, I love like thinking about this, but the first time I did Fight Combat, it was my first CrossFit workout.
Oh, nice.
Perfect.
Tait had a gym, and I interviewed him on the radio, and then he's like, "Come on down." And it was when I was doing like running, and I was coaching, like I was doing like volleyball coaching for the junior Olympic volleyball team in Santa Fe, and like, you know, whatever, doing drills and things like that. He's like, "Yeah, come down." And I walked into this gym that was super scary with like a cage, and they had like 45-pound barbells only. And me and my friend Blake, and we started out in the rowers, and I was like, I'm going to impress the shit out of everyone in here because I'm
got
an
this.
athlete.
Right.
And then the second round happened. I think I even got to the barbell, and I couldn't even lift 45-pound bar.
Yeah.
I was trying to do like the high pulls,
Yeah.
and Tait
Yeah.
was like helping me with his hands. And then I sat in my car afterward and couldn't use my arms, and
Just
was
T-Rex.
like I had to drive home, and then didn't want anyone to see that I was still sitting in my car, so I was like slouching down in the car to hide as they were like locking up the gym because I couldn't like use my arms yet to drive home. And
Yeah.
And you
then
were
I was
hooked.
hooked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're like,
Exactly.
wait a
I
second.
guess she really had something to prove.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my gosh, I
Well,
gotta.
yeah.
That competitive edge came out.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing, you know, like Glassman said it from the beginning. He's like, you want to watch people actually do something, put their names on the board and put a score next to it.
Yeah.
And man, does it work.
And it changes everything. Then you wonder
Yeah.
about diet. Then you wonder about
Yeah.
how I can perform better.
Yeah.
Then
Right.
you're like caring about how much water
Yeah.
you take and intake. And it's like, if you're not doing something like that, you kind of don't care. And then we get into this other
Yeah.
level of things. that
Yeah, no,
isn't
100%. I mean, the performance-based stuff. And I mean, I think that's something that you see. Well, I mean, and I'm sure you saw this in MMA especially, right? It's like there's in weight class dependent sports, it's not, you know, how do I perform the best at this weight? You know what I mean? You get that like extra level of parameter that's like stuffed on there, you know, that just completely dictates how you eat, how you train, how you sleep. Like everything is to fit into that little goal, you know? And like with CrossFit, it was just performance across the spectrum, you know, but that introduced like a level of importance in training and training methodologies. And like you were saying, like access into the food piece and then the sleep piece and the lifestyle piece and all of this stuff that people just never put together when they were just going to the gym to get their hour of exercise in every day, or, you know, maybe they were training for like a half marathon or something, but even that, it's like, you know, you can
put up with feeling horrible for a lot of the other types of training.
Yeah.
Like this type of training, you will feel horrible. You will feel 1,000 times worse if your diet isn't dialed, and you won't be able to do it.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
you absolutely will not be able to perform. And
Yeah.
I remember one of our friends was like getting into it, And he was walking in and he had been talking like, yeah, I'm eating better and all this stuff. And I'm going to do really good in CrossFit. And he's eating a donut as he walks up to the door. And I had just finished a workout and I was dying. And I was like, you're in trouble. And he's like, I'll be fine.
Yeah.
It's coming out
30
your nose.
seconds in, he's throwing up in the trash can outside. He's embarrassed, like the whole thing. And he's like, I don't understand, like, what's wrong with my body? I'm like, you just put a donut in before you like ramped up your situation. And yeah, no, you can't do that. We're in Santa Fe at high altitude. Like, you're going to be sick instantly.
Right.
And you just have to learn that lesson. Then once you start to eat better and feel better and accomplish things, you're like, oh, and then you notice that in the rest of your life as well.
Josh Everett.
Josh
Everett, that's who it
yes.
was.
Guy,
Yeah.
Yeah, a hero.
Yeah.
I mean,
Totally
it made, well, that's a great video. Everybody talks shit on Glassman, like everywhere, and they talk shit on CrossFit too. And the only things I hear that are valid complaints are like that it's dangerous.
Fair enough. Yeah.
That says everything. Yeah.
Fuck, man, did you want a life that wasn't?
Right.
Like what? And the thing is like life's dangerous. Like it comes up and it's dangerous. It's dangerous in all kinds of ways that you wouldn't expect.
Yeah.
I mean, we could talk about the trivial to the dramatic. It's it's everything in between. People die from all kinds of things. It's like life, and this idea about it's dangerous. It's like the idea that you want to shrink from becoming more resilient is fucking insane. And the thing about CrossFit is like, there's a bunch of different trainers. Like the first trainer I ever trained with is a fucking idiot.
Right.
And then became one of the best CrossFit. But like, everybody grows at different rates. And so you don't get to have the cream. I mean, now it's a different world in that way in a lot of ways. But at the same time, there's not another fitness modality, correct me if I'm wrong, across all of humanity for all of time that has done as much as pushing functional performance-based health and fitness to the masses in such a complete way that it's altered tens or hundreds of thousands of people's lives in a sustainable way that's gone on for years and years and years. You can measure. I mean, there's nothing, it's not a fad. It's not like there's nothing that's changed people for the better, like CrossFit on in a physical way. I don't think you could show anything.
Well, even the
think so
fact
either.
that just regular people know what a jerk and a snatch and all of these things are. I mean, those were never common terms in the gym. And, there's like housewives and, teachers and all kinds of regular people doing these movements and mastering them. And you're like, this is amazing.
And to put a standard to it. It goes, no, here's what we call a pull-up. Here's what we call a push-up.
Right.
And it's like, if we're not meeting these standards, then we're talking about different things. And that's the problem in conversation a lot of times today is that, like, I mean, I don't know how many times I've watched the word liberal change since I was 12 years old, right? It's a little different than the Greeks thought about it at this point. Like, there's this bastardization we have. But that's why I love, like, when I talked about earlier, and I don't know that I said it well, but like this idea about living a life of consequences, that like you put strictures on it so that you can up your performance and function to a higher degree. And it's like that comes up everywhere. It comes up in life, our ability to do that everywhere. And the only people that isn't pertinent to is people that would argue that, I mean, I wouldn't argue with them, fine, but that don't want a better, more enriched life where they can be more useful to others around them. Like, there's the only people that aren't interested in that. It's somebody that's some kind of crazy, self-obsessed asshole that's like, fuck them, or whatever. I mean, it's like, that's an insanity unto itself. And so, I look at that and I go, this is a thing. You talk about putting your name and your time on the board. It's like, fuck, you can instill pride and consequence into people right here, right now. And then you can also change the way they feel about like what this losing means. It's like, I'm in the game. I'm trying, man. I'm in the game. And that's all we got, man. Be in the fucking game.
Which is another thing that CrossFit did that was so amazing, is create that culture of cheering each other on. No, like you said, if you're in the game, you're not losing. Like the last person across the finish line is just as much a winner as the first person, in the sense that they gave it their all and their team is there to cheer them on and to support them in their progress. And it's like, I'd never participated in anything, even group sports growing up, where it was the camaraderie was that connected. It really brings it.
It's funny too. It's dissimilar everywhere. Like CrossFit Games and CrossFit, those are dissimilar entities. That's a different They do a different thing at the CrossFit game. I know you guys in your boxes right now think we do that too. No, you don't. You don't. And there's nobody in your box going to regionals, so stop it. But like it's this thing where that transcends it. That good naturedness, that community. You see athletes competing against each other for fucking money, for bragging rights, and they're helping each other and they're cheering the last one on. And that is, it's different. It's different levels for sure. And it's a different game than at the games than in your local box. But that sense of love and camaraderie, man, to see that, you see it peek through every games. It happens where there's somebody struggling at the very end and everybody, all the girls come and cheer around her to make the last rep happen. Like, it's fucking amazing.
It is.
I mean, it gives me goosebumps.
Yeah.
You can go ahead and talk in the microphone.
Always want to be heard. Yeah, I was saying I bawl my eyes out in all those moments whenever that happens.
That's why I love the documentaries. Like, I get obsessed with them. They're so great and they do such a good job of really painting the picture, like these moments that you're talking about where you really feel the energy of that camaraderie. It's really awesome.
We've been invited to Reebok HQ a couple years in a row where they host, once the regionals are over and the athletes are chosen, they do a thing and they invite all the athletes to come in for 2 weeks and train with the best coaches or whatever.
Okay, cool.
And because of Caveman, we get to go and like give everyone coffees.
Nice.
They love us.
Yeah.
But just watching the people that choose to go, they're going to compete against each other in a couple weeks and they're going to, have to hopefully beat each other, but they're out there training together to push each other further, to get better together, even though they're going to compete against each other. And it's like, that's really beautiful and amazing.
Yeah.
And, they all know each other's strengths and weaknesses and things like that, but they're just like, hey, you should try this. Or, it's like, they're all just there for everyone to be better. Which is
it's amazing.
cool.
Yeah. We love you, CrossFit.
Yeah, no, that's legit. I mean,
Let's turn into the CrossFit love hour.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, but you know what though? Honestly, like I think CrossFit needs some love occasionally because, like you were saying, I mean, it's a massive target board for people to just throw darts at, and I mean, not all of it's incorrect, but man, there's so much more that it has brought to the table in a shorter period of time, like you were saying, Tate, than anything, that I've been, I mean, I don't know, maybe Jack LaLanne, like back in the day, really blew things up, But I mean, the only other sport that I've seen or been, participated in that was similar in that respect is rodeo. And it's like rodeo cowboys travel all over the place and they rodeo together and they go to the next place and they go to the next place. And there is not ill will. I mean, yeah, sure, there might be a bar fight, but it's not, it's not competitive in that way. That's like, oh man, fuck that guy. That's just not how it goes down, and it's such a familial and like community based sport that it's phenomenal. It's good stuff.
Yeah, those guys are a different level and all admiration. Like all those kind of, like all those old bullfighter guys and all that. I get to work with some of those guys and they're legendary and they don't look to be like, I'd like to blast that dude in the mouth. It's like they're in awe of their fellows that are around them. They're like, you know who that guy is?
Yeah.
Like it's amazing, man. It's amazing what they do.
Yeah. Did you see what happened to that guy last weekend? And he's back, like with a neck brace and like maybe a cast or two, but he's doing it. It's freaking nuts.
So besides fitness and food, what are the other things that have made a huge impact on the game for you guys?
On which game?
On the game of life. The game of life. Like this whole thing, about being better and, pushing harder and going into the discomfort. What else helps you to get through that, to navigate that space besides, your physicalness and obviously the way you nourish yourself?
I mean, we're currently challenging ourselves in a way, especially with Caveman, that I don't think ever dreamed of doing. Starting a company, starting a business, being a small business, sharing a cool thing with the world, and then scaling that and becoming, getting to this place where you're like, oh, okay, you should like really go for this and put your money where your mouth is and put other people's money where your mouth is too. And so being like leaders in that way and innovators in that way, and then learning the game of what that is, because it's an industry that is totally different than the fitness industry or other, I can't put my physical body into business and get corporate America to listen to me or play the game. And it's like, eventually you have to learn how to navigate that. And I think we were putting ourselves in that spot a lot the last year, which has been incredibly challenging and teaching us so many things, and lots of learning happening and lots of growth, which is really exciting. And that, you know, makes me personally a better communicator, a better business person, understanding those ropes and living through it and making adjustments where you need to. And all of that has been a huge self-development for me.
So when you're in that space where you're trying to navigate something that maybe you haven't navigated before, whether it's, I mean, specifically in business even, what do you lean into? Like, what's your tool set? Like, do you have something that you're like, okay, when I have this moment, I really need to go to the beach and look at the ocean and chill out?
Right.
Or like, what's the thing that helps you navigate those uncomfortable spaces?
I think there's a variety of tools that you can apply to that. And I think it took me a little while to figure that out, whether it's like clearing my head, stepping away for a little while, doing a workout, whatever, or leaning on a mentor. And I think that's been really pivotal for in the last year is, okay, I can use my intuition and instinct on what I think needs to happen, which guides me pretty far. But then I need to talk to some people that have done this before, or that are willing to show me like some other options and other perspectives, and learning to take those suggestions, ideas, with a grain of salt also, to be like, this isn't right for us, or this is right for us, because you can get pulled in a lot of directions when you start asking for that.
Sure.
But leaning on other people that have done some of these things, or that kind of understand what we're doing, has been really, really helpful, I think, with our conversations, because that gives us like a framework of where, okay, we should be thinking about it this way, and then how can we apply that for ourselves? And then, a struggle constantly for me is just like keeping the mental game really strong and not getting overwhelmed, or like overworking myself, taking care of myself. Like this year I laughed because I'm realizing that, self-care is as simple as feeding myself. And it's like, I'm somebody that's talking about nutrition for tons of years and like loving that and working out and all this stuff. Now I'm doing none of those things. I'm behind my computer. I'm injured. Like, okay. Let's go back to basics and realize that you actually have to take care of yourself, or else you can't like take care of this other thing at all.
Totally.
Yeah, we when we started our the current iteration of our online coaching programs, we met a couple of developers here in Venice, and we worked with them to develop the app that we fundamentally ended up using. And one of them made a note like a year and a half in, and was basically like, I didn't realize that the least healthy thing that I could ever do was become the developer of a health app. And it's like exactly true, man. Once you get locked into that piece and start doing distance coaching and all of that, it all happens right here in front of the computer, and you're like
all day, all night. I can
day
make more
long.
wheels turn if I just keep on going and have more caffeine.
Just that caffeine. What about for you, Tait? What are like the things that have made been the difference for you in navigating? I mean, obviously you're used to leaning into the discomfort. It sounds like you've really embraced that, but within that journey, like, what do you pull to? What do you lean on?
I mean, that I'm going to have to be alive tomorrow. And just the horrific idea of that is enough to make me want to be emboldened for tomorrow, because, man, I mean, I don't know. I mean, that's part of, if I've got to live, I want to be able to choose how I live. Like, and so I try to go back and go, let's do your future self a favor by being more helpful to your current self today, instead of making a bad it's all choice. Like, what choices are you going to make today? And so for me, it becomes reductive in the last couple of years anyway, of saying no more, of not making myself so available, because it's too much to attenuate. And so then you can, I found myself in the last little bit, like I can lose myself in it all. And then I go, wait, what? This isn't fun. Why am I even doing this? And when I start to get into that, I need to just go back to my basics and start to pay attention to those details. Because at the end of the day, everything that I'm doing is just, it's for funsies, right? It's always, there's nothing more important, and also it's all just for fun. And it's like, in that paradox is the whole deal, right? Is like, 100% lean into it and give yourself all into that. And also know that it doesn't matter very much and that it's super highly important and all that shit exists at once. And it's like trying to live kind of seamlessly in that is the rub, I think. And then, you know, it's all the same lessons. Like have somebody behind you that you're helping, have somebody in front of you that's helping you, and try to hold the space in the middle and try to be a good representation of all the things that you've layered on you that you wear today to be able to hold that space best. And, I mean, I feel like that's the thing is like know your lane, right? And to have a real idea of like who I am. It's like it becomes more and more important as I go on, I think. And I think that, you know, those become the things, I guess, for me. You know, and because if I don't have that looseness in my chest, if I don't have, you know, if I'm going out with tension, it's like it's not a way that I can be useful. It's not a way that I want to live very much. You know, I want to be able to, I want to be able to be useful. So I want to be able to be in the fight either of the learning and of the putting, you know, like it's hard to learn and it's painful to learn. And it's like, I want to either be in that a little, I want to be in enough parts of everything. I want to be in the relaxed enough. I want to be in the tension. Everybody tries to get the stress away and all the tension's what makes me go. You know, it's like the stress is what makes us go. The stress, that's how your body adapts and that's how we can overcome, like load up the stress, but like then choose it, you know, and looking at like ways to where, whenever I start feeling like the pinball inside the pinball game, then I need to dial it back because life's not buffeting you around like that unless you're allowing it. And so I can take it back and go, okay, how do I own these lanes? Oh, all right, here's where I have my balance again, you know. But, you know, and to stay in the game this long, like with this, like this caveman coffee thing is the, you know, that and performing in film is kind of all I want to do. And in that is this huge lesson of like, did you just create noise in the space, or are you able to take this somewhere? And what are you doing now? And with that, all the same things apply to the coaching and to being any kind of athletic endeavor. Is like, don't, you know who you are, know how big you are in the space, and know what you're able to satisfy, and know what you aren't. Don't speak outside of what your own mouth can provide. And it's just like, it's knowing yourself as you're leveling up and growing. And so it's constant self reevaluation and reevaluation. It just seems like it moves faster and you need to be quicker at adjusting, but that it's all doable and it's all there for us. It's just for me, the bravery of stepping outside the door, right? How do you get outside of yourself enough to go, okay, one more time, we're going to do this again today, you know? Today's not going to be the day I'm not going to show up for it. And I think it's like that. I think it's, I don't know. I think it's the same. It's always the same rules apply, you know? You go back to whatever you learned in kindergarten is probably going to serve you today. Be nice, clean up the sandbox when you're done, fucking, you know, don't bite your neighbor, whatever. It's like simple rules that'll last you forever, you know? And I think the nicest thing about it is the same thing about sport and about this is like, there's stuff that you don't tell other people in sport when you're fighting another team or something like that. But like, at the bottom line of it is everybody wants everybody to get better. And like, you look at it, you know, we're responsible for one another's evolution, which is, whether you know that or not, it's true. And we're pushing up against each other and we're asking things of other that are pushing you into a heightened state of evolution. And so you can get better quicker with each other. With a concentrated group of people that are going towards a concentrated effort, you get better way fucking faster than you go, I'm just, I don't need people. I'm going to do this, you know, and all this kind of like, it doesn't go anywhere, man. That you're part of the dead. You're part of, you get washed away evolutionarily. But like we start working together towards this purpose, like things happen. And so the same thing in business, you know, we find ourselves helping some people, getting helped by others. It's the same as being an athlete, you know, how do I do this better? And so it's like, I think remembering that nothing's done. I guess that's, you know, how do you keep going? Cause it can be long and arduous and you think, fuck all this. And it's too much. But the list is never over. The to-do list, it's endless. And there's not a retirement. So find a way to love the thing that you do more than you don't like it. And I thought about that. We did this Expo West thing where all these people from the grocery and natural foods kind of come together, and buyers and sellers and producers and everything. And so in that thing, I'm looking at all these, you see everybody with their hopes in their hands going, fuck, man, I want to take this thing to market.
Yeah.
And you see it's beautiful. It's a real expression of hope then there's all the old dudes that are like, how do I twist a buck out of this? It's like the dudes selling CBD now look just like the undercover cops that arrested me as a kid. I'm like, you guys is this a sting? It's like, and so, this world is changing and all that. But that thing about being in the game and in that business at Expo West and seeing all this, all I thought about was, this idea about being more than, you can be or should, like this idea about like what you think other people are looking at, especially with Instagram. It's more and more and more. And it seems like all these people are like, I want to be an entrepreneur. And it's like back in the days, like you'd have guys and they go, I want to be a fighter. And they're like, I never wanted to be a fighter, but I like to scrap. Mm-hmm. And I like to fucking work out with guys, and I like to learn how to get better at this thing, and I like to go and dominate competitions, and I like that.
Right.
And then the thing I was doing was called being a fighter. Mm-hmm. And so it's like,
Right.
do you want to be the thing, or do you like doing that thing? And that question doesn't get asked enough, I don't think. People are like, I'm an artist, because they think that means you don't have to work. No, man, artists are steady killing themselves.
Yeah.
They're suffering always.
Yeah.
And that becomes a thing. And so I think if that is your thing, if this business or this, like, everybody want to be a big shot and this and that and whatever, but I think the thing is fall in love with what you do. It's the same rules as they tell you in kindergarten, How do you know what you want to do at the playground? Oh, do you like playing kickball? You should do that. You like the monkey bars better? You should do that. It's the same thing, man. It's a self grab. Like whatever you want, you should do that. And especially if you're going to go and endeavor something like as crazy as a business idea of some kind where you're going to put your money and your time and your effort into it. Make sure that ain't a whim. Mm-hmm. Is it something that you love and that you're going to love after it's not cool anymore to do, and after it's not fun, and after it's you've just been immersed in it forever? You better still like doing it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So find that thing. What's that? Is it something that you believe in that matches up with my values? And that's how do I mark my life? I don't take shit that doesn't match up with my values and ethics, whether that's relationships or whether that's a food, like whatever it is, man. I don't fuck with you if we're coming from different kind of consciousnesses. I just there's too much other discussion we have to do to catch you up, right? It's like if I got to tell you how two things can exist and they seem oppositional and you don't understand how paradoxes work, man, we're gonna have a hard time talking, And so like just not that I'm better or worse or this or that, but it's just like you got to meet people where they're at and where we're undertaking right now. We got to everybody's got to have their shit together to a certain degree to be in the conversation. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, it's a remedial conversation, and we're not in a remedial game. We're in a game that has these heightened consequences, and so more and more and more, if I'm going to be useful and helpful to the people coming behind us, then we better fucking take care and do this thing well. And then it comes down to like the whole thing everybody wants to know about success and how that looks and what success is. And I would say like how useful were you able to be and how helpful were you able to be? And for me personally, did the guys that helped me when I was nothing and I wasn't a good bet to bet on, would they look back and go, I didn't waste my time on that guy? And I think that those are the things that for me that I look at as far as what drives me on is because I owe people. I owe people, and I owe me, and I owe my all my forefathers, and I like, man, it's I'm a fucking citizen, and I want to act that way.
I love that.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing to think about. That concept of owing people or wanting to ensure that you're contributing. Because I don't think. I mean, it's easy to talk about selflessness, and like, oh, I'm doing things for other people, or I'm in this sort of life of service. And, being a fireman for, 20 some odd years, that's a lot of the feedback I would get from people. Like, oh, it's so great that you're like in service to other people. But it's like you were saying, I'm getting paid to do it. You know what I mean? It's like your tax dollars are fundamentally paying me to do something that, when I was a kid was like, that looks like an awesome job, until you really realize what it entails, but there's something different, I think, once you get out of things that are classified as service, right? So if you're not in the military, if you're not a policeman, or you're not working for the fire department, or you're not, in one of these roles that people would just consider like a service-based role, I think it almost becomes more valuable. You know what I mean? That idea of being of service. Because if you're just Joe Schmo that's doing whatever, like bagging groceries at Ralph's or whatever, like, are you fundamentally of service to these people? 100%. Would people call you that and be like, oh, this, thank you for your service? Like, doesn't really come up that much for people that are bagging groceries, But at the end of the day, if that person can derive meaning from the fact that, did you help people today? Yeah. You helped them. You were nice to them. You interacted with them. You provided a service to them and fundamentally helped them out with their day. If you can keep track of that shit for yourself, like, well, how much more meaning are you going to get out of life? Right. It's like this concept of work providing meaning, and we talk about it a lot, like from the exact opposite perspective in the fire service, where we're saying, look, you can't let this job become your life, because if it does, then when you retire, you're going to be fucked, because you're going to be 50 something years old and you have no idea what the hell, how to interact in the world around you. So you kind of like hedge people against that in the other direction. But I think just in day-to-day life and regular ass work, whatever that is for you, if it's an entrepreneur or if you're working for somebody, however that looks, the work that you're doing, if you do it deeply and like commit yourself to actually whatever that, like mastering whatever that little craft is, man, there's a tremendous amount of meaning that just generates from that. It's you putting everything you have into something, whatever it is. Yeah. And there's like I think that's a really tough thing to replicate, and like if you're looking for that, I don't know where the fuck I'm going with this, but if you're looking for it,
it's like a spiritual idea, right?
Yeah.
It's like an intention. It's a spiritual idea. I mean, I remember washing cups at a coffee bar at a Lano Club, and I thought, this is fucking, I'm a loser. This is like, what the fuck? I've got no skills except stuff that'll put me in jail, and I don't know how to live in life, and
right.
I've never been a part of this structure, and the dude said, you're washing cups for God, Tate.
Yeah,
that's what's happening.
Yeah.
You're serving coffee to God's people, and like he was really on that tilt a lot. And I was like, okay, if I could get, okay, I've got my fingers, I've got discernment, I'm able to do this, and I was able to get grateful for that. And shortly later, I'm digging ditches, and I'm digging ditches for God. And ain't it great to be me? Because I got 2 feet and 2 hands, and I'm able to do this, and I can follow the directions. And at the end of the day, it became self-preservation for me in a way, because you can either feel like this about it or you can feel like that about it. Feeling like this about it taints the rest of your day like this, and feeling like this about it taints the rest of your day like choose.
Yeah.
And I had no idea that was a choice.
Right.
I just thought, this doesn't taste good. Fuck. I had no idea I could change the way I felt about the taste of it. I had no idea. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's so important.
Yeah.
Well, it's just that that mindset in everything. So it's like you can either be the victim or you can, we say be the pirate. Like you can literally be in charge of what you're feeling and what your emotions are. You can take every instance as like someone's against you, the world's beating you down, it's so horrible, and guess what? You'll get beat down. You'll get exactly what you're looking for.
I never said you could be the victim or the pirate before, but that's a T-shirt, maybe. I just never
So I kind of meant that's like what our message is. Yeah. Now we said it. Here it is.
Now it's been
You
said,
can be a
yeah.
victim or a pirate. That's the next coffee cup. But it's just like that mindset thing of, growth mindset or victim mindset. And
Right.
It's like you can be faced with so much. And I noticed this as I grow, where like certain things will happen that I'll be like, wow, that would should I be upset about this? Like that would really have upset me before. Nope. Keep going. Like I'm fine. I'm
Right.
fine. Am I fine? Am I physically fine? Is everything fine? Nothing
Right.
crashed? Okay, cool. We're good.
Right.
So it's like just learning that. And the more you go through life and the more you put yourself in those fires, the better you get at navigating it, the better you get about not being upset about it. I remember like leaving home for the first time and having something happen, maybe I guess at my dorm in college, and wanting to like call my mom and tell her. And it's like, well, what is she going to do about it?
Right.
But I really need to call and tell my mom because I need to be mad about this, And it's like, no, you have to deal with it now. And you can choose how you want to approach it. You can be mad, you can piss everyone else off, or you can go on. And if you're applying that to whatever your job is, whether you like it or not, whether it's your calling or your passion, we have this whole like weird culture that we live in right now where everyone needs to be like living their dream and like all this stuff and showing it online. And it's like, that's not really real ever. Maybe for a moment you might feel that. And there are definitely those moments of gratitude that you're like, wow, I'm so grateful for this. But it's like, really, it's going through the steps of each day, whether the challenges are there or not, it's just going to happen. And you just learn how to roll with it and learn how to take it and learn how to, maybe approach things so that you're more lighthearted and you can sleep better at night. And that's all up to you.
Yeah, 100%. So I know we've been talking for about an hour now, so we want to be respectful of your guys' time, but I'm just curious, Tait, obviously you mentioned briefly about, going into film and doing stunt work and all of that. Was that something you always wanted to do, or how did that come about, and how has that changed your outlook on things, or is this just in alignment, like the continuation of the story that began with the other stuff, the fighting and the working out and all that? Is it a continuation, or does it feel like it's brought something new to the table?
I mean, I think that it's just another art form with which to kind of become adept at, and it's all different, and I don't know how to do it very well, and I don't know, a lot of it's a new business and so all that kind of stuff, but I just, it's like you go, okay, I would like that, and then you show up and you're scared and you wait. I mean, it's the same. It's the first day of school again, and it's like you're a beginner again, and all of that. So I like all of that in some ways, in the same ways that I hate it. This whole thing about living the life you dream and all that. I think it's a beautiful point that Lacie brings up, is as far as like, living the life that you dream and all that. Like, it's easy to look at your life and go, oh man, if only that were my life, but I don't know any of your pain. I don't know any of the, and the monotony and the frustration of the day-to-day shit that you did to do this beautiful thing in your life. I only see this beautiful thing, it's like nobody looks at the broken bones and the blood. They just look under the lights. Doesn't it all look pretty?
Right.
And so I always try to remember that aspect of it, is that like, even in the sweetest part, sometimes that's the hardest, most strenuous, angsty places. And so maybe it's just important that we make good choices for our souls, that we're looking to nourish and elevate that at the same time this life is occurring all around us. The film stuff was a natural thing. I got into it. It was the thing I'd always wanted to do, but like it seemed like an audacious idea to, I didn't like, that doesn't seem reasonable. Like, hey, I'm going to be in the movies.
Right.
You say that to somebody and then you get mixed reviews. People often tell you to get a real job, or they tell you when are you going to get serious about life, or and that's been, my whole life. And I haven't yet been very serious about it, but it just looks different than other people's overlays, I guess.
Right.
And then I just thought, fuck, even right now, I think maybe I could really make a life out of this stuff as an actor. Even though it's like my resume looks crazy when I look at it. It's like there's a bunch of, it's awesome. I'm enviable of it. But you never know when it's going to end. It's like everything else. And so for me in these businesses, like fighting like that, it's like, it's weird because you're shaking your own tree. There's nobody that's going to help you at the end of that. Like, and nobody cares very much if you lose at all. Like 4 people, like, and so you're in this thing that it doesn't matter to anybody else whether you suck at it or not or whatever. And so there's this sense of, you're kind of alone in that in a different way. It's in a different way than fighting is too. Cause in fighting, like you've got this camaraderie of your teammates and everything. There's a different, and people talk about it, it's a lone sport, but it's not really. You carry a lot on your back there, and that you're proud of. But like this is more like it's more self-interested, I guess, is this acting, and it's really like, how do you form your vessel in a way to be able to perform in this regard? And it's just a different kind of expertise, I guess. But for me, I always just wanted to be able to. I want to be able to move deftly from one thing to the next, and whether that was from, these sections, of self, of like the emotions and intellect and physical, and like they all come up everywhere, but they come up in different ratios depending on what you're doing. In fighting, it comes up in a different ratio than it does maybe in performing in front of people for theater, or it comes up in a different place than if you're a race car driver. It comes up in a different place than if you're a physician, but like all those things are present. I just think in the balance of that, it's that spiritual aspect. I think is the tonifying quality that kind of overlays everything. And you go, okay, what is my purpose and intention in this? Because we can walk through, we can walk down the block and 100 people walk that block and they're going to pick up different things about how that smelled, looked, tasted, felt, like their comforts and all, like, and so to get a broader range, I guess for me, it's like getting a broader range of life of going, considering, story. Because I think stories, I think maybe that's the interest in acting, is that story is the first place that I felt like I found healing in a lot of ways, was in hearing somebody else's story and they go, maybe me too, and you see that. And I mean, we've all been touched by art in different ways, but I think in that, to be a part of a story that you can maybe help to be more of a healing quality in life it's a big thing to undertake. And I feel like that's where I want to put my intentions in that. That's what we wanted to do here. I mean, I guess I would say, trying to get my head around the question, I would say it's like an outlay of all these different things. It's like, yeah, everything that brought me to now is because of what happened before, right? And it wouldn't have happened without it. And, and I couldn't have predicted it, and I couldn't have. It's weird, all this talk about directing, but I couldn't have directed it. I just didn't have the breadth of consciousness to know how big possibility was. I guess it sounds funny to say that, but that's the truth. I think.
Yeah.
No, I think
Makes
that's
perfect sense.
Yeah, that's exactly it, man. You don't know what you don't know, especially when it comes to what's possible. Like, fuck, I couldn't see myself doing that.
I'm so limiting.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I say it all the time. It's like, what's the point of life? Get out of your own way. It's like, I mean, that becomes my whole thing. How do I get out of my own way? My ideas that make up what I think about you, or how I feel about this, or and it's like so much of that. When I put it through and I go, does it have function or performance? That thought or idea, like everything is the same. I put it all through the same filter. And it's like, either it has function or performance for the society that I'm in, or it doesn't. And if it doesn't, let's get rid of it. How do we get rid of it? If it's a fucking little thought that just hinders you and stays with you all the time, and it's something, man, we got to address that. We got to look deeper. We got to excise that. Like, I mean, I think the whole thing of life, no matter what, if we're coaching, if we're at the grocery store, if we're it's just like, how do I raise my consciousness to the highest level that I can do in this lifetime? I think that's the job. I think, I've got a friend of mine that calls it Earth School, and he goes, we're just all in Earth School, and we're all in different grades. I mean, not everybody's at the same. It doesn't matter. It's not like there's more advanced or this or that. People are just in different spots. And how do we comport ourselves to the highest degree to get the most efficiency and output at the end of it? And you can argue about what output is. Is that money? Is that goodness? Is that, how many people did you affect kindly? Like, whatever. I think it's like that. Maybe.
Yeah.
I cannot argue with that.
She's a pretty
Nor would I
arguer.
want to. Yeah. I am a pretty good arguer. So tell folks where they can find you guys, both individually, together, the coffee. Give us all the scoop.
They can find me just at Tait Fletcher. Easy to find. Caveman Coffee is our coffee company. You can find us at cavemancoffee.com. And Lacie Mackey on Instagram. I'll let her.
Yeah, Lacie_Mackey, I think. But if you find Caveman Coffee, you'll find us both.
Yeah.
We're there.
Awesome. This has been amazing, guys. Thanks so much for coming by.
Thank you.
And can't wait to try the coffee.
Yeah, there's some back there for you.
It's what time is it? It's 6:30
Maybe tomorrow.
p.m.
Probably tomorrow then,
It's
yeah.
Unless you want to get it. Yeah.
Exactly. All right, guys. We'll see you soon. Thanks.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
And that's all she wrote, folks. We hope you guys dug this podcast. We certainly had a good time recording it. And, we covered a lot of ground back and forth. We got PC stuff. We got entrepreneurial stuff. We got a whole dose of CrossFit stuff.
Yes.
Yeah. We covered the gamut.
We did cover the gamut, which is what we like to do. We are gamut covers.
We are gamut coverers.
Coverers, yes.
Yeah.
And don't forget, folks, if you are interested in covering some gamut with us in Peru,
Yeah.
then get on that pre-sale list. The wait list under experiences on our brand new website.
Shiny website.
Beautiful new website. If you haven't been over there, check it out at bethewellness.com. Get on the wait list and stay tuned for new announcements about that adventure coming soon.
Yes.
And we'll see you soon, guys. We love you.
Bye.
Bye.